somewhere in the first years of your life, you learn to walk. You fell down thousands of times. You pull at yourself, wobble, crash, and try again, day after day, until one afternoon you took your first steps across the room while someone watched with tears in their eyes. I remember that feeling. I'm a father, you know. You do not remember a single second of it. You do not remember learning to talk. You do not remember your first word. Though someone in your family probably still repeats it. Yeah, very nice. You do not remember the face that fed you, the room you slept in, the hands that held you when you cried at 3 in the morning. Nice timing. Yes, thank you. The most important years of your life, the years that shape almost everything about who you became, are simply gone. A blank, as if they happened to someone else. This is not a personal failing. It happens to every human who has ever lived. Psychologists call it childhood amnesia. And for more than a century, it has been one of the strangest unsolved puzzles about the human mind. Because here's the part that makes no sense, but really no sense. You were not unconscious as a baby. You were awake, right? Well, sometimes. You were learning at a speed you will never match again. You were forming memories. We can prove it. So, where did they go? Let me show you what happened to the first version of you. Start with the mystery in its sharpest form. A 2-year-old can absolutely remember things. Ask a toddler where the cookies are kept, and they will lead you straight to the cupboard. Yes, they recognize faces, recall routines, learn the names of hundreds of objects. Their memory works. It works beautifully. And yet, when that same child grows up, almost none of those early memories survive. No. Most adults cannot recall anything before the age of 3 or 4. A few fragments might remain from age 5 or 6, usually blurry, often wrong. Everything before that dissolves. So the memories were there, and then they were erased. The question is, why? Why? For a long time, the famous answer came from Sigmund Freud. Yeah, that one, who coined the term childhood amnesia in the early 1900s. Freud believed the memories were not gone at all. He argued they were repressed, buried on purpose, because early childhood was full of feelings too disturbing for the adult mind to face. It was a dramatic idea. It was also almost certainly wrong, because childhood amnesia does not look like repression. It is too clean, too universal. It erases the boring memories, along with any difficult ones. Your first birthday cake is gone. For the same reason, your first scrap knee is gone. Repression cannot explain that. The real answer turned out to be far stranger, and it comes from looking at the brain that was actually forming those memories. Here's the crucial fact. The brain you had as a baby was not a smaller version of your adult brain. It was a fundamentally different machine. In your first years of life, your brain was building itself at a rate it could never approach again. It was manufacturing new neurons and, more importantly, wiring them together at a staggering pace, really fast. Millions of new connections were forming every second. Your infant brain was less like a library storing books and more like a construction site, pouring foundation, tearing down walls, and rerouting entire structures by the hour. Yes. And that constant, furious rebuilding may be exactly why the memories did not survive. A neuroscientist named Paul Frankland studied this using a part of the brain called the hippocampus, which is essential for forming new long-term memories. The hippocampus is one of the very few brain regions that keeps producing new neurons through life, a process called neurogenesis. In babies, this process runs at full throttle. New neurons are being born and packed into the memory system faster than at any other point in life. You would assume that more neurons means better memory. Frankland discovered exactly the opposite. When his team increased neurogenesis in young mice, the animals forgot faster. The flood of new neurons was physically disrupting the existing memory circuits, muscling into established connections and scrambling the delicate patterns that held a memory in place. It was as if the brain was so busy building new rooms that it kept knocking down the ones it had just finished. Think about what that means. The very thing that made your infant brain a learning superpower, its explosive growth, was quietly overwriting the memories it created. You were not failing to record your childhood. No, you were recording it onto a tape that was constantly being re-recorded. The price of learning that fast was forgetting almost everything along the way. Yeah. But neurogenesis is only part of the story. There's a second reason those years vanish, and it has to do something you did not have. You did not have language. Stop and consider how much of your memory depends on words. When you recall your last vacation, you narrate it to yourself. You went here, then you did this, then this happened, then you felt that way. Your autobiographical memories are stories structured in language, organized in time. Now, imagine trying to store a memory before you had any words at all. No labels for objects, no names for feelings, no concept of yesterday or last week. No sense of a continuous self moving through time. Baby experiences the world as a flood of raw sensation, warmth, hunger, sound, color, the enormous face that appears and disappears. But it has no framework to file those experiences into. The psychologist Katherine studied how children develop autobiographical memory and found that it depends heavily on learning to tell stories about the self, usually through conversation with parents, like me. Yeah. When adults ask a child, what did they do today, and help them shape the answer into a narrative, the child is learning the machinery of memory itself. The ability to hold on to life as a sequence of events does not come pre-installed. No, it has to be built, and it is built out of language and social storytelling. Yes. Before that machinery exists, experiences cannot be stored in a way the adult mind can later retrieve. No, it is not that the memories were lost. No, it is that they were recorded in a format your current brain can no longer read, like a file saved by software that no longer exists. The data may be there in some ghostly form, but you have no program left that can open it. And this reveals something profound about what memory actually is. You tend to think of memory as a recording device, a camera capturing your life, but it is nothing like a camera. No. A camera does not need to understand what it films. Human memory does. To store an experience for later, you need concepts to attach it to, language to structure it, and a sense of self to anchor it. A baby has the experiences but none of the scaffolding. The footage was shot, but there was no one yet who knew how to file it. And there's one more layer, and it may be the most unsettling of all. Some researchers argue that childhood amnesia is not a bug at all. No, it might be the point. Consider what your infant brain needed to. It needed to extract patterns from the world. How does gravity work? What do faces mean? Which sounds are language? How do bodies move through space? These are the deepest, most important lessons a human ever learns, and your baby brain learned them with breathtaking efficiency. To learn a general rule, you often have to throw away the specific examples. You do not need to remember every individual time you saw someone walk in order to understand walking. You keep the pattern and discard the instances. Yes? Does that make sense? Your childhood memories may have been the raw material that got burned as fuel. Yeah? Every forgotten moment of watching, touching, and failing was fed into the vast general model of reality that you now carry effortlessly and unconsciously. Yeah. You cannot remember learning that objects fall when dropped, but you know it so completely that you will be shocked if one did not, right? The specific memories dissolve, but their lesson became part of the permanent structure of your mind. You did not lose those years. No, you became them. That is a strange resolution to the mystery. The reason you cannot remember being a baby is not that nothing happened. No, it is that everything happened. Yes, so intensely and so foundationally that it stopped being a set of memories and became you instead. The person who learned all of it had to disappear so that the person shaped by it could exist. Yes? Your earliest self was not erased by accident. It was consumed deliberately to build the person now trying to remember it. So, the blank at the start of your life is not empty. It's the opposite of empty. Yeah? It's the most densely packed, most consequential period you will ever live. Compressed so completely that it left no surface for memory to cling to, right? Everything you are most sure of, the things so obvious you never question them, was learned in that vanished time by a version of you that gave up its own existence just to teach you. You went looking for your first memory and found a wall, but that wall is not the edge of your story. No, it is the foundation the whole thing is built on. You cannot see the foundation of a house by standing inside it. No, you can only trust that everything holding you up was poured there first, in the dark, by hands you will never remember, in a time that made you who you are precisely now, by refusing to be remembered. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for more.